Friday.
You are Rebecca Brown. Hello. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Filtered. I'm Hannah.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Celine.
I'm Benita. And I'm Sharon.
Welcome back to our Breaking the Mold series. And we are so excited to have you guys listen to us today. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Maryanne Jor.
Oh, I'm so excited.
This is so exciting.
This is exciting for me. I am so excited to be here. I literally listened to season 1 every episode when I would get out of the shower. This is Filtered the podcast, but I'm going to be a little unfiltered. I would really get out of the shower and listen to the podcast as I'm putting my clothes on and getting ready for bed. It's like part of my nighttime routine. So really, really grateful
It's okay. I listen to your
here.
music in the shower. It's fine.
Oh.
Wait. Maybe I'll.
It's okay. You can listen to the shower. No one's judging you. It's a safe place. You probably have your deepest connections and feelings with the Lord at that time. So you know what? Listen
outside
to
the shower. I meant outside the shower. All right. So if you guys don't know Maryanne, she is a Grammy Award winner, an artist who's currently partnered with Maverick City Music, and she's a mental health counselor.
She just does it all.
Every day I wonder how I'm making it in this world.
Oh my.
No, it's the grace of God. I'm literally figuring it out. But yeah.
You're doing great.
For real.
So you have a lot on your plate right now. You have a bunch of roles and you are making it work. So is there anything that you've done that has helped you get to where you are right now?
I think I have really good community and like really good friends and family that really ground me. I think having that has been super helpful because you're right. There's a lot of roles right now. I think this point in my life is probably the busiest season I've ever been in, where like I just had a kid like a year, like 14 months ago. So she's 14 months old now. And navigating that space of like motherhood and like what that means as an artist and like just figuring that out. I feel like that's been pretty challenging. And I feel like having my parents there to be supportive is like also helping me take care of the baby, and like having my friends who are also like able to speak into some of the insecurities I might have, or like some of that imposter syndrome that shows up when you transition in roles, in between roles. I think having all that has been really grounding and super helpful, because it's easy to get lost in the expectations that people have for you, or even like the opinions that people try to put on you. And so having those people in your life who are like, no, this is what you're, I'm just reminding you as your friend, this is what you've been called to do. And you are graced for this moment. You're graced for this season. I think that has been super, super great. And the cool part is like, I feel like I've had that before I kind of became part of this group, or before I even had influence or platform, any of that. So I started with that, which has been really good and helpful for me. So I feel like that has been set in stone, and I really feel like that was a God thing, because I don't know that I could have handled this current stage of life without having those things in stone already. So yeah.
Did you think like years ago at an early age when you were, because you've been singing your whole life, like in church and everything, right? So did you think that this was going to become your career?
No, I think I always wanted to like, release something, but it wouldn't have been like, I think I would have just done it because I wanted to, and like I enjoyed it. So I always knew that I'd be doing music in some way, shape, or form, whether it meant like worship or like just having fun on the side with it, or like collaborating with people like Hannah's sister and brother-in-law, like Chris and Blesson, who I've grown up singing with too, like doing stuff with them, doing events with them. Like I always thought that would be the thing. I never anticipated it being like a full-time career. Never. No, that wasn't even a possibility, if I'm being honest. So
where was like the shift?
Well, I think when it started to gain a little bit of traction, I just graduated with my master's when I started to get involved with these writing camps that ended up becoming like what Maverick City is now. I had time off, so I was kind of like invited to do this, and these were artists that I had looked up to my whole life. So it was kind of one of those opportunities where I was like, this would be dumb to pass up on. So I'm going to just try. And there was nothing like, it was like a week of my time, like to just go and write and come back home. And so I didn't think anything of it, but I did it a few times and it started to feel like, oh, wow, this is actually something I feel like I can do. I feel really called to this. And it was one of those things where I feel like God put it in my lap and I didn't really ask or seek it out. I'd always just done covers or like had fun with music like at home. So I never really wrote music like in that way collaboratively. So it wasn't something I thought of. So when it started to like gain traction on YouTube and stuff, where some of the people that started those camps were like sitting me down, they were like, okay, like you have a choice to make. Like you can decide if you want to try this and go from here, or you can go back to working. It's really up to you. And I hadn't started looking for a job yet. So I like prayed about it and just decided after that I wanted to do it more full time. But that was like, I think where the shift happened, where I was like, okay, like this is going to be like a thing. Like I have to at least try. And if it doesn't work, then, you know, I have a career to fall back on. Like I have a degree.
Yeah.
And even now, like if that's something I want to go back to, I can, you know.
Were you ever scared, or was it like such a peaceful decision, or was it like?
No, I was definitely like terrified, because I feel like it's not, even though I had like certain connections, like the music industry is not a safe career. Like it's not a safe career path. It's not like a stable industry. You're very much disposable at any point. Whereas I think like that's why our at least being a brown woman, like a lot of my upbringing was pushed into like stable careers. Like you're always going to need a doctor, you're always going to need a nurse, you're always going to need a teacher, you're always going to need a engineer. Like yeah, I think there's a better term for that, like these careers. I don't static
essential worker.
Yeah, essential worker.
I just said STEM careers.
There you go. Yeah, that too. Where it's like there's always a need for them.
Yeah.
Like music is like, you know, you could be popular today and like, where is Rebecca Black? Do we know where she is? She had one hit song.
I'm right here. I'm right here. It's Friday.
You are Rebecca Brown. Hello. Okay. But
I feel like sometimes it's like scary to go because it's like considered a hobby. Like I remember when I wanted to go into college and I was trying to figure out what career I wanted to do, my dad was like, you need a job to fall back on. You need to go to college to get a degree that like you can find a job in, like something that even finance, like I wanted to go to finance, but everybody was like, that's not a safe job security like market. So go to an accounting because everybody's always going to need an accountant. So like even in music, it's like our parents are always like, go into something you could always fall back on because maybe you want to follow that hobby or that dream of yours, but at least you have some type of security blanket.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I wouldn't have normally, like the way that it went for me, this was the only situation where I would have done what I did. Like I don't know that I would have naturally been like, okay, like I'm 32 now, I'm gonna stop my job and like pursue music. Like,
but that's so good. Like you seize the opportunity. Like I feel like for me, even doing what you did, that's so brave. I could never see myself being that confident, and I would have so much anxiety around that. So just seizing the opportunity, look how far it brought you. That's crazy.
I don't, and I want to say that I don't think seizing the opportunity means that you don't have the anxiety. Like I think you definitely, you still like, I mean, I'm still scared. Like, I've been in this since 2019. I'm still petrified. Like literally, I made the decision to go full time with my career in November of 2019, and then the pandemic hit at March 2020. So I'm sitting at home being like, this is probably the dumbest decision I've needed because everybody and their mother is going to a therapist right now, and they're making a lot of money. Like, they're not like their job is very secure. Like I like to invent it. So I was like very much like this may not have been the right choice, but I wanted to tell myself it's not the right choice, but it was like, it definitely was. 2020 was a year that Mav really took off, and like we released a bunch of stuff, and like it was a really big year for us.
You went into this career like after you were married, right? Do you think that was like a huge difference because like you're not in your parents' household anymore? Like, do you think it would be different if you were younger and this had happened?
I do. I think I don't know that I don't know if it would have been as easy of a choice to make. First of all, I don't even know if I know my dad, like he would have like a million and one questions, like, oh yeah, who's there? Like who's saying what room are you sleeping in? Like who's next door to you? Like who's like giving you food? What time?
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm mind you, I'm like 30 years old right now. I'm still getting those questions right now. And I'm like, I'm a fully functioning mother. We're gonna be okay. But like, yeah, like I don't know that I could have done what I did without the support of like my partner and like the people in my life. Like I think at that point, like I had gained enough like trust with them. I mean, they couldn't really make the choice for me at that point.
Yeah.
Like I think like John also knew this was like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And like these are the people that like we sang their songs in our churches as you know, attendees of an Indian American church. So it was really like, I feel like even now sometimes my parents are like don't really like my family sometimes don't really understand the gravity of the situation or like what I'm doing, but like I feel like little by little like they are starting to get it. Like when I would this year we went on 2 tours with Kirk Franklin, and I feel like my dad knows who Kirk Franklin is, so that was like a big deal for him to get to meet him and to like talk to him. And like then he's like, oh okay, maybe you know a little bit of what you're doing, Maryanne. Maybe I don't need to like ask questions.
Yeah, that's crazy. So like being a counselor and like a music artist are not typical jobs that we see in the South Asian community. So like when you told your parents you were pursuing either of those careers, did they have like a reaction like, girl, what are you doing? This is not an essential worker job.
Yeah.
This is not STEM.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, they were trying to push me into like PA school, like first med school, and then I was like, I like, you know, gotta gradually decrease down to PA school. But yeah, like when I decided, well, the reason why I ended up going into mental health was because I started an InterVarsity at like my college at the time. And so I was coming into contact with all sorts of people. And it was my first, like, almost my first real whiff of like evangelism and like mission work within a campus. Like I always thought, I mean, we grew up in churches where we were like, oh yeah, missions trip to India or a missions trip to like Costa Rica or a missions trip to like Africa for like 12 days. And that was missions. And I think like I'd always mentally put my mind in there as like overseas missions is the only type of mission. And like God called me to do that in my college campus. And I found myself in contact with all sorts of people, like all different walks of life. And I had a real passion to talk to them and to hear their stories and kind of respond to things. And it was really difficult life stuff that they were going through. Like I remember one of them was like, oh, you know, my daughter just came out to me and she's a lesbian and I don't really know how to communicate with her, talk to her, but still love her as a mother. And so it was like really intense things where I was like, I'm like,
you're not prepared. You're not prepared for stuff
like
I
don't know how to respond. But I really do feel like even now I felt like the presence of like the Holy Spirit there with me to answer these questions. And so I felt a nudging and a leading towards counseling from that moment. And I really feel like I'm so glad I went through with it and did the whole thing before I went into songwriting and industries like this, because so much of what I've learned in my master's and in undergrad like has like the skills that I acquired I'm still kind of using in conversations with people, in songwriting rooms, like getting down to the meat of what people are feeling and what they want to say. Like I feel like that's a strength of mine in a writing room. And so that's like skills, like we essentially do the same thing in therapy. And so it's just a lot of clarifying and of thought and just kind of getting to the heart of what we want to say and how we're feeling. So I do feel like those career paths were not typical, but when I went into my college experience, that was something I felt called to do. So I told my parents about it. They like, I think at that point they realized I'm not going to do PA schools. They're like, do something because we don't want you to be just sitting on your behind all day. So they were cool with it, but they weren't like, they weren't testifying on Sunday morning like my daughter is a mental health therapist, I'm so proud of her. Like no, they're not doing that. So and then when I went to ask to do the songwriting thing, I had to like preface it with like I prayed about this and this was like a decision we made. And I feel like once I did it that way, like they kind of took it more seriously and they were kind of like, okay, like they were nervous because they were just like, no one's ever done this before. Like, how do
Mhm.
you know this is the right decision? Like, how do you know what to do next? And honestly, those were really scary things to walk through, just the legal side of things, the business side of things. I had no one, I still don't have people I can really reach out to and like
Mhm.
talk to about that stuff. So I've had to like do a lot of that research on my own and trust that God's going to bring the right people. But they've been supportive. They've been really, really supportive. They know that it's not something I've tried to do on my own. So it's like kind of one of those, it's like a God thing. And there was also a lot of prophetic words about like something to this extent happening for me. And so I just don't think we expected it to be in the way that it is, but we kind of knew that God had planned for something like this to happen. So they kind of knew.
Yeah.
And
I think
we're
that's
supportive.
similar to what Robin Simon, he said on our previous episode that like when he went to his dad saying like, I'm part of NDIA, we're putting out these albums, his dad was like, okay, good, I'm okay with this because this is a God thing, and like you've prayed about it and you're singing and worshiping for God's glory. So I think that's a huge thing. If people are talking to their parents and scared about it, if you've prayed about it and you believe that this is where God is leading you, that's ultimately going to be what your parents support. They're not supporting your crazy decisions. They're supporting God in your life. So
Mm-hmm. No, I have a question to propose to the group.
Oh.
This is my podcast now. Just kidding. I was gonna say, do you feel like it would have been the same kind of response had it not been Christian music?
I personally, I think it depends really on your parents' stance, because
Yeah.
like I feel like it's like a lot of parents in the India community just associate like secular music to be like drugs, like, you know what I'm saying? But like there is other music out there that's like more on the purer side. But like when you tell your parents, like they think of like the worst possible case scenario. But I think it is difficult to do secular music because it's so easy to fall into the other side of it.
Yeah, but also because they've seen the stories of like what Miley Cyrus has been through and Justin Bieber, and like they've seen that stuff. Well, at least
Katy Perry is a full-on preacher's daughter.
So are the
like,
Jonas Brothers.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's not like it's really hard to like.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is when I'm in the car with my parents, there's a different playlist that goes on. So if they saw me going into a whole field, that's not Christian.
Listen,
You're not a Malayali like kid growing up with Malayali parents if you have the like one playlist that you play with them all the time. Like, hello, we just knew not to play Z100. Do not play Z100 in front of your parents on the radio. Just play K-Love.
You have to show Justin Bieber singing Reckless Love.
So I'm intrigued by this concept because like I eventually want to release music that is like not like it's not congregational worship music, but it's like in the style, it's like vibey. Like I want to do that.
Oh my goodness, is this an inside scoop we're getting right now?
It is an inside scoop. But yeah, I'm working on stuff and I would love to release stuff like that. But I also believe that like when you follow Jesus, like when you're a follower of Christ, like the fruit of your life is worship, like the fruit of what you do. So even if it's not necessarily like I love Jesus in a song, it's like just the nature of your process and the way that you process is always going to be like, it's always going to glorify God if I have that intent. So the intent of my heart is to glorify God. Like I really feel like even if I'm singing about me going through like a difficult situation, like in my marriage, like I still feel like that song can bring glory to God in a way that maybe is not typical of like a worship song or like
that's like
Lauren, what's her name? Lauren Daigle?
Yeah,
she
or
kind of
Tori Kelly too. Tori Kelly does worship music, but she also does vibes.
I also feel like it also depends on like the people you have surrounding you. Like you have people like, first of all, you yourself are grounded in God and in the word, and then you have people surrounding you who can keep you accountable. Like, you know, like I feel like like obviously like we love Justin Bieber, we stan him. When he first started going into the music career, like his circle was not, no one was holding him accountable. He got into the wrong crowd.
That's a very good point. Because you can also like be with producers or like people that don't understand your heart and your vision. That's such a big deal,
Which
so.
actually brings us, like, how has your management been different from like other secular labels, that ensuring that their artists are not morally compromised?
This is a great question. This is actually like a great question, because there is like a very fine line between like we're not a church, we're not representing a church either. Like, so, which I feel like when you're like for example, like Elevation Worship is a church band, so they're under the accountability and leadership of their church. Where a lot of times, like when you're in a collective, it's kind of like, yeah, everybody has their own church and has their own accountability, so it's like, and then people have different accountability, and that's honestly like has been an issue. Like, it's been a struggle within our team sometimes to know, like, okay, yeah, this might have not been the most appropriate response to this, or like this may not have been the best way, or like, and we've had to like kind of had really difficult conversations with one another, like where, and that's a good thing about our team, is that we're also really good friends and we're like family. And so it's like, when we have people who do dumb things, we're like, bro, was this worth it? Like, do you feel like this was worth it? Like, this is just egging on something that you're picking a fight that's not worth fighting, and so we've had to have those kind of conversations. But it's like our management never, it's not like it's, I don't think they would call the shots for us, but like, obviously, like if something was really like morally an issue, I feel like all of us together would be like, yeah, this is not the right choice. This doesn't represent us well, doesn't represent Christ well. And, we have to have those hard conversations, but it's never like, it's always consult, like, we always talk to the person, and we're always, I feel like that's the way that Christ does it. But it has been like that question, when I saw that you were going to ask me that, I was like, that's a really, really good and difficult question, because it's something I think we're struggling with even now, because we're all like parts of different churches, and what might be like okay for one person may not be okay for another. And so, it's just like kind of been interesting to navigate those things. Like, I'm pretty sure if like my pastor saw everything, they'd probably be like, please leave the group, you had a horrible horrible company. But it's like different, but that's also the beauty of like, I mean, it's like we're all part of different cultures. Like, what is typically okay for me in my culture might not be a thing that's typical for another member who grew up in a different culture. And so I think the thing that we try to focus on as much as we can is just like, does this honor Christ? Like, is this something we can all agree on? Like, is this something we know that God would be pleased with? Is this something we know God's not going to be pleased with? Like, what would represent him well? That's been the bottom line. I think that's what we've always tried to do. And like, in all decisions, we obviously like are adults, so we don't like, we're not going to sit here and police people, but at the same time, we're like, is this the smartest choice? We will challenge each other in that thought.
You and the other artists, do you each have your own manager? Or
we do have our own managers. Like, I have my own team, and that's the beauty of MAV. Like, we are able to be a part of a group, but at the same time, we are able to do our own stuff. We're not like solely exclusively part of a collective. Like, so I have my own gigs that I travel for. Like, I do my own events, I do my own bookings, and then I'll do stuff with the group. And that's, I love that we have that freedom to do both things, because I think it's helpful for both of us. Like, it's helpful for them and it's helpful for me. Like, when I do my own bookings, like, and like, especially when I do my own bookings within the Indian community, like, it exposes them to it exposes Maverick City to a whole new like niche of a whole new audience, essentially. It's really helpful.
Are these managers like Christian based? Or
Mine is, I think most of them are, because the Christian music industry also operates a little bit differently. From like just the dynamics. Actually, it's a lot very similar, but it's like the dynamics are different. So I think a lot of times it's like easier to get people that understand that, and like, especially when you're in contact with churches, there's certain expectations that people have. Like, so it's like you would want your team members to at least have familiarity of like church culture. Mine was actually she is Christian, but she did do secular music, and she did Christian music. She's very familiar with.
I'm just like imagining all your managers, like all of y'all, like in the group chat, they're like, yo, what's your client doing today? Like, my client's at IPA today. Like, what's your client doing?
Oh my God. It's like, a lot sometimes, those group chats, because it's like 20 plus people. We already are a big collective, then plus
Yeah.
our managers, and then our group chats is like then plus our band, and then plus like our
Oh,
like the artist, the management over the collective, then we have our founder. It's like, everybody shut up and like
Do you have
just
your
don't
own
talk.
band like that will travel with you?
Me.
Yeah. Like you personally.
So I have an MD, which you guys might know, Justice Tams. He's amazing. He travels with me for my events, and then he will tell me usually what I love about Justice, and this is what an MD does. He kind of like gauges when you get an invitation from another church or another place, they will kind of gauge like that level of like musicality in the team, and then they'll be like, yeah, I think we should bring our own people, or I think we can make it work this way. So I have used my own band before. So he would like arrange everything for me. We would pick sets together, like me and him would pick sets together and map it out, and then he would like assess, like he would talk to the team there and be like, yes, like what we want to do, and like, and then based on a conversation he could like pretty much gauge if they can do it or not.
Yeah, that's cool.
And thankfully I haven't been like, I always get a little scared. Yeah, like I always get a little scared. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah,
like,
I would be nervous too.
There's like 55-year-old option playing electric guitar. I'm like, are we gonna be good tonight? Like, we don't know. And then like they blow you away, so you never know.
Yeah, so I know that a little while ago you were talking about how when you were starting like to go into like the music industry, like you had to kind of research everything yourself, right? And like there was no one to really go and talk to. But now that you're in this space and in this like career, do you ever feel like it's a burden to always be a representation to the South Asian culture now? Like you yeah, representation matters, but do you always feel like, oh, I gotta, anytime I go somewhere, I gotta be like South Asian, South Asian, South Asian. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I don't know who asked me this, but somebody recently asked me, do you feel like an ambassador for your culture? Sometimes I do feel like I feel the weight of like, because most of the rooms I'm going to are predominantly white or predominantly Black. Like they're not like, they don't really, they've never really written with an Indian woman before. So they always like end up mentioning like, I love Indian food. And I'm like, yeah, love Indian food too. Like, it's like, so that stuff is kind of like, it's like, okay, but at the same time I'm like, I also look at it as, I feel like it's a perspective thing. Like I can look at it as like, okay, this could be really a chance for me to like show you that there's more to my culture than just Indian food.
Yeah.
Or like colorful clothes, but just explaining some of the things of like the culture, and like, you know, we're actually really loving culture, like we're really protective of what's ours and things like that, or even sharing some of the difficulties, because I feel like that's something that's difficult. I mean, me being in the space is difficult in and of itself, so like talking about some of that, and it comes out in our songwriting as well. Like usually songwriting is a very vulnerable process, and so we kind of have to talk about our stories before we can, you know, write a song about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely feel like sometimes it comes up. It definitely comes up. I don't always feel like I don't always feel super annoyed by it. I think it's like some days it's hard, but I think I feel more the weight of like within my culture, certain decisions I make. Like, for example, I don't have my ears pierced, and I do wonder, like, making the decision to pierce my ears. Are people who don't, are other young girls who maybe feel really represented by me not doing it, are they going to feel like sad? Or like, do they feel like they're going to have to do it now too, or it's not cool for them to do it? Because I remember like growing up seeing other artists that were like modest and made it look cool, or like you know, did the things I was allowed to do and made it seem like I wasn't uncool for not doing it, like, you know. I think I felt seen by those people. So like now I'm in this space where it's like, okay, this is such a small decision and it really shouldn't matter what people think, but I don't want people to feel like they're not represented here, or this decision was like me selling out, or like,
yeah,
you know, like, so I think I feel the weight of that within my culture more than I feel of like me having to represent my culture to other people outside of my culture.
Can I just say, like, watching from like an outside perspective, right? Just from like as a a brown woman of like a Pentecostal Malayali culture, like to see you in those spaces is such a like it's such a blessing because it's like
Seriously.
we have you said ambassador before, and I'm just like, yeah, you are kind of our ambassador into those spaces. We like and like always cheering you on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like to
Thank
have
you.
someone like us in those spaces, such a rock star move, like so
Seriously.
cool.
Thank you for saying that. I think sometimes it's also really hard because I will experience things in it and I'm like, it's really hard. And I'm like, I never want anyone who looks like me to go through this. I don't like, I sometimes go into the space and it feels like an uphill battle to like fight to belong, to fight to
Mm-hmm.
feel like my voice and representation matters. Because as much as like, you know, there are times where it feels like I have to prove myself, or I have to show people, not you, but like show people in my industry and space that like, hey, wait a minute, I have something to say. Like, this is like important, like this matters to me. And the fight sometimes to do that, and like sometimes the rejection you experience, like it almost makes me feel like, oh man, like I really hope nobody else does this. Like I don't want them to feel this type of rejection because it can easily like shut someone down. So it's like sometimes that is really hard to deal with, just like the pain of that sometimes. And like, but then I tell myself, like, I've been great. This is where like my friends and my, like, you've been graced for this. Like God has placed you here to make a path for people like you girls to do something like that. Or even for like, even if it means like this podcast, taking it on a more national level or taking it more internationally, like whatever that looks like. I would hope that like these type of experiences that I go through would like give you guys courage, and I want it to be a safe place. I want to eventually fight to make it a safe place for people who come after me. And I think the weight of that is really hard sometimes because it feels like you're never going to win, but you keep going.
I feel like even as like little kids, first of all, like we also know you like as a Chechi. We've known you, seen you in churches and seen you sing. But like when you see these like little kids, like when they look up to you, it's like, oh, she's doing this, so I can do that too. Like I don't have to go to the traditional route, that the doctor route, the accountant route, the engineer route. Like I can follow my dreams and do something bigger if I feel like I have a calling in my life over music, over writing, over like any creative aspect of this. I can go and chase my dreams. I can go and follow that, even no matter the color of my skin.
Right. And also to like, I want people to know that if that's what God's called you and graced you to do, like you will receive the grace to get through it. It'll be hard. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but like you will get through it. Like, you know, it will be given to you, and God will bring the right people if you like, if that is what, you know, he's called you to do. So, and I've seen that. I'm like a testimony of that. So yeah.
So like on Instagram, you got that little check mark. You made it, right? So like, but with that also comes with like a lot of comments, right? Do you look through those comments? Like, do you like look at your like Instagram comments and see like all the different like types of like what people say to you, or do you try not to even like go into that world? Because sometimes people are nasty and sometimes people are very uplifting. Like you don't know what you're gonna get when you go into that space. But I'm just curious as what your process is regarding that.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to comments versus DMs, I feel like I do see the comments more than I see the messages, because I don't always go through the messages unless I'm like asking, like if I'm on my stories and I'm like, hey, would love to hear from you about this, and then like people DM me, but I don't always look through the messages. But the comments I'll see, like people have commented some weird stuff. Like there was like someone who commented on a picture of my daughter and like said something about abortion rights, and I was like, but like also I feel like I'm also very like very cautious and selective about what I post on social media. I think more so this last year than I ever have been before. I've been way more like private, and I struggle with that because I'm like, I want to be relatable, and I want to build my audience, but I also feel like sometimes that's very emotionally exhausting for me, and I want to preserve all the emotional energy for my art and feel it into art and to music. And so I often say like I miss those days back in the day when we would wait for like an artist to release an album and we'd know all about their life through the album, because I feel like that was like so pure and like protects the artist. Like they didn't have to say much. They just already, they told you everything in the song. Like they don't, you know, they don't have social media where they're creating content and they're like, you know, share like every post is like some announcement of some sort. And like I've really like hated that. And so I feel like in a lot of ways I like didn't know how to like steward my platform well while still protecting my heart and guarding it and like protecting the people around me and my friends and my family. But this year I'm really trying to be better about that, where I think there is a way. I think you can choose to post things. Like I can choose to post about my skincare routine or like a get ready with me or like things like that, where I think people feel connected to you still, and like I can still show my personality through those things. Or even it was like I just went live recently for the first time in a long time, where I was going through like this New York Times article where we were going through like life hacks, and I was talking to my friends, and it was similar to like a podcast vibe, but it was on live. And I feel like things like that where it's like not super personal, but it's like enough for people to feel engaged and relate to you. So I'm finding that balance now, whereas like I think last year having a kid and everything obviously like messes with your mind, and like that was not my focus. Like I was not focused with engaging with people, but I think this year I'm really going to try more at that. But I don't post things that I feel like are controversial. I'm like a pretty safe like poster. But who knows, y'all? I might get crazy. 23. I'll be coming out. Coming out with the tattoo.
You're gonna get a call from your dad today.
Stay tuned. I know, he's gonna be like, I was listening to Filtered the podcast. No, guys, it was really weird for me when my parents started getting on Instagram to like watch my stories.
Oh, that was the main reason?
Yes. Because like after I started getting a lot of followers on Instagram, they're like, oh, like my God, what are all these people looking at?
What are they looking at?
And then they're like on it. My dad, y'all, the way my dad responds to every story. Who is this? Wow, this is amazing. What is this about? What does this song mean? I'll post a song about like random things. He's like, I don't know. I don't like this lyric. I feel like this is not a great. I mean, I'm like,
oh my God, he's analyzing every single
thing. And he's thinking about it in the lens of like, how are other people viewing this? What does it say about you?
Do you reply to him?
Sometimes sometimes I'll just be like, LOL. One time, this is so bad. One time on tour, I had an outfit. I wore this like, it was a tight outfit. I was wearing like orange pants and a brown shirt, and I posted a side picture of my booty was bootying, and my mom comments on this. She's like, next time please wear a longer shirt.
Oh my God, no way. No.
Wait, did she DM you this?
Oh. Yes. No, she texted me and DM'd me.
Oh, dead. She wanted to make sure the message was clear.
Very clear.
No, she knew you don't look at your DM, so she was like,
she has no chill. The parents do not care out in these streets. They're like,
at least she's not commenting it.
Do you have
commenting
to, like,
on your post?
I know you're like,
she's too embarrassed to comment it.
I know you like do your own thing, but like I feel like if I still would feel like I still have to run things through my parents. Like when I walk downstairs on Sunday and in an outfit, I like walk past my dad. I don't ask him if it's like okay if I can wear it.
Yeah.
But he'll be like, that's a nice outfit. And then I go back upstairs and I'm like, okay, I'll be fine. But if I know it's like a little like crossing.
No, we all did that. I feel like we all kind of did that. No,
I walked downstairs and he's like, no, not that one.
I did not.
Especially when I have to go on stage and I'm like, oh, I tucked the front in. Does this look too bad? Is my booty showing too much?
The goal, the key is to just be really confident in the approach. Be like, yeah, it's great, and you have to defend. You're like, yeah, it's tucked in because it accentuates the waist.
When you don't have a booty, it don't matter. So I'm in the clear.
Yeah, I
was gonna say that's like a huge thing. Like your dad was saying, he's like monitoring to see like what other people think. Like South Asian reputation is a huge thing that we talk about multiple times on this podcast. And so like when you're posting things, like you already said, you're cautious about it, but like are you thinking like, oh my God, what are people
thinking when I post this? All the time. I wondered, like, especially when I was like touring and I was going on tour and like leaving my child at home.
Mhm.
I was super afraid of like how people would view me, and not it's not that people would actually comment on my post, but I think I was really just thinking about the mentality of people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, most of the people I think I'm really scared of are not commenting on my posts. These are like aunties and uncles who I've grown up with, who are like probably like literally went to church a few weeks ago, and somebody was like, "You're doing your daughter a disservice. You're leaving her too many times in a day." And I think like I'm now getting to the point where I'm like, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, so it doesn't bother me as much. But it
Yeah.
still sucks because these are
That's
the people that,
crazy that they just come up to you and say that.
so
At least say
Yeah.
it behind your back. I'm just kidding.
that
But
is
but it's okay. Like I get it, and I have to take it as like they're really concerned about my
Yeah.
child and my family, and like I try to think of it that way, but also know that like
That's so
my family is
rude.
fully
You're better than me.
supportive. My family's fully supportive. My husband's supportive. Like, you know, I'm doing this for her. Like I
Yes.
want Mariah to grow up one day in a world where, first of all, my ceiling is her floor,
Mhm.
and two, like she never has to think twice about doing what either her dreams are, or like what God's called her to do, which I really believe God gives you those dreams, you know? So I never want her to have to think twice that like, oh, having kids are going to stop me from doing that. But I think there's a
Mhm.
beauty in like involving your family, involving your kids in that process,
Mhm.
and letting them dream for their own, just like, you know, you've dreamed. And I think we
Do
didn't get that chance with our parents because they didn't get the chance to dream,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
yeah, definitely. Do like aunties and uncles come up to your parents and be like, "What is your daughter doing?" Do they have conversations with
No, I
them?
think they're more I think they're more proud of what I'm
Okay.
doing because I think they're not seeing they're seeing like all the cool things, right? So
Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, she's on TV, or she did this or she did that. She got an award." And like so they're seeing all the cool things, are very very proud.
I'm so
But
glad because if they
yeah.
were talking dirty about you, we all gonna fight.
Oh
No,
my
because
god.
I'm just like, obviously, this brown community, don't they think like they know that you're thinking about all the pros and cons? Like you love your daughter enough to think about these things, so you
Yeah.
are going to protect her. I'm just like,
Most
keep
of the
your
time,
mouth shut.
yeah, most of the time it's not bad. Like it's very rare that people are doing that, and so I'm grateful. Like most of the time most people are very very supportive
I'm
That's
glad
of
we're
what I'm doing.
progressing as a community and
I do
becoming
think
more
so.
supportive.
I think we're like, I would even say this about your church. Like I think that like our churches, yours, the church I grew up in, the church y'all are in, like I think they're better at being more understanding about these things, and they're actively like trying to evolve in the thought, you know. And it's hard when you're
Listen,
in the middle of two cultures.
if you didn't do what you did, what songs would we sing on Sunday? Because we just sang your song like last week.
Hannah is obsessed with singing your song. If Hannah's singing,
Not obsessed
It's-
with singing your
oh my
song. They just
God.
imagine
It's your
my
song.
voice. Well, I can.
That's great. You should sing it. Oh my god, thank you guys.
I told you guys not to mention that I sang her song last week.
What song did you sing?
You have my yes.
Oh, I know.
one more thing. There's this stigma in the South Asian
seems to
community, right? To let the man shine in his career, and for like the woman to do, you know, like to take the back seat, to take care of the family, and to not really overshadow said husband. Have you ever had to deal with any of that criticism, like being in the public eye? I know we just talked about it, saying that you were like leaving your daughter, that people are like, where are you going? Go back to
Right.
her. But like, do people say that like in regards to your like, you know, husband and like marital life, that type?
You know, it's funny. They don't. And that's because John's mom and John's mom's mom, like they all were very strong women that had their ministries were more popular than their husband's ministries. So like right now, my mother-in-law, like she preaches, she is like well known for her like evangelistic efforts, and like she preaches a lot in India, in America. And like my father-in-law is a cardiologist and he does preach too, but like she's like who most people know. So he's always created an open space for her to do that, is not threatened by her, not feeling like, you know, he has to fulfill, like he has to take a step down. Like I don't think he feels that way. Like I think he looks at it as like her ministry is my ministry. And with John and I, we honestly have that same thing. It's like I don't look at this as like just me and
Yeah.
my ministry. Like this is
Mhm.
really John's too. Like, and so every opportunity that I get is like, this is, he looks at it as like, this is an us thing. Like it's not just a you thing. You're just representing, but it's really our ministry together. So I think when you have that mindset, it's really helpful. But having also parents that have lived that out before us, like has also been way easier for me. So like anybody who has to say anything about me, my mother-in-law is like, hello, like I've done this. And then her mom also did that, which is like John's grandmother. And they've passed on now, but like John's grandfather always created like a space for her to do that and never was threatened, always like welcomed it, never like overshadowed, like never like, because he's a man, he never felt like he had to like assert his dominance or anything. So I think generations of that like has been super, super helpful for me. And I don't feel the need to like prove myself or fight within my family.
That's amazing. We love a supportive husband.
Real. Yeah, and even like when it came to like Mariah, like I feel like he does more than probably the average dad does. And I love that Mariah gets to see a strong father figure in her life that isn't just held by a cultural gender role, you know, like she sees a dad who gives her a bath, she sees a dad that feeds her, she sees like it's not just like, oh, my dad just comes for family prayer and deals with the finances. Like, no.
Isn't that crazy that like a dad that bathes your child or feeds them is like they're involved?
It's so crazy that they get celebrated for doing what they're supposed to do.
I feel like that's like also his ministry, because him serving your guys' daughter like also supports you doing another whole other ministry. So like
that's how he views it too. Yeah. So it's been really, really great for us to think that way. So we're always very like good about, you know, there might come a season in life where I won't be doing this anymore and John might have to do something, and I'm going to be supportive with him in that situation as well. So
you hear that, everybody? Be like John. Use him as your role model.
Okay, like we still struggle. We're not like perfect, but it's really, really helpful to have that, and we're honest with each other when we need to be, and so
let's get to the last question, which is real scary. Do you ever think about if Maverick never took off, where you would be right now?
Yeah, honestly, sometimes I feel like it would have been a lot easier. In a lot of ways to be, I know what I would have had. I would have just been a mental health counselor. I probably would have lived. I still think I would have eventually come here because John's job is the one that moves us. Like, so he moved from St. Louis and then come here. I probably would have just worked here. Probably worked from home, honestly, with the way things are now. I probably would have worked from home. And honestly, like I would have lived a really regular, degular life, and it would have been fine. I do feel like a lot of times this is the harder life. This is like much, much more difficult. And sometimes I crave to go back to the ease of like, no one's really looking at me. Like, cause I feel like even difficult decisions like that I have to make, like, it's like, okay, I've got to make it and people are going to know about it, like whether I like it or not. I feel like those decisions would have been just so much easier to make, you know, if I didn't do Mav. But I always try to like focus on the beauty and like, I mean, when you go on tour and you're on a stage and there's like 20,000 people in the room, and then Naomi calls for like a salvation moment, and to see those hands like in the room, like I think that will never get old for me. Like just seeing the way that people are getting saved in some of these nights, and like to hear firsthand testimonies of like how my music has personally impacted people. Like I think those will always be the things that like really touch me, and know that like, okay, God is using this, even in my weakness or even in my insecurity or my imposter syndrome and like all the opinions that I deal with on a daily basis. Like I praise God that he still makes it work for his glory. And that's really at the end of the day, like even if I was not doing this, like I would pray that whatever I did with my music, because I still would do music, I know, I just pray that it would all be used for his glory. So yeah.
What
Amen,
testimony.
sister friends.
Well, now this is when we move on to Hannah's segment.
Oh,
we got audio.
That was a spontaneous moment. Overtook me.
Sound bites. I'm so excited.
No, yeah, I was like, we need a sound. Honestly, that was one thing I finished season 1. I was like, we need a sound bite for like kind of segment. We need like a little.
Well, now we have one. So
Now we have one.
Oh my god!
And
Do not use that.
Maybe not.
Haven't you
No,
tried?
I'm saying you guys come up with something way better.
All right, ladies and gents, we have made it to your favorite part of the podcast. So today for our segment, I'm going to be showing Maryanne some of her outfits from her tour and maybe off her tour. Going to describe how she felt about the outfit, what her thoughts were during that moment, and just her memories that bring her back to that outfit. But if you guys want to see what actual outfits we are talking about, head over to our Instagram at Filter the Podcast, and we'll post a little reel for y'all so you can follow along with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was really, really fun.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for coming on and letting us learn a little bit about you and what you do. It's amazing, and we are so proud of you. I just gotta say,
we are.
we're so proud of
Brown
you
girl
and
power.
out fangirls, and we'll support you till the end. All right.
Till the end.
But thank you guys for listening. If you guys watched our reel just then, you can follow us on our Instagram
No.
at Filter the Podcast.
She doesn't mean to be so aggressive.
Now y'all are there already. Y'all better press the follow button. But you can follow us there. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. So you can listen to us every other week. We are there. And you can also send in questions and comments anonymously or through our DMs. We would love to chat to you all. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Maryanne, for coming on.
Thank you
Guys,
guys.
loves you. See you later.
Go search up Maryanne J.
Oh
George.
yes, follow Maryanne J. George.
Yeah.
Maryanne.
Follow her
I
because
was-
you want to see what projects.
Let
she's
me tell you
working on,
something.
so-
Everyone following us already be following her.
Yeah.
That is
Following us,
true.
you're following
Aw.
Maryanne J. George.
Go listen
and
to her
that's-
music and sing it on a Sunday.
And go follow her TikTok.
No. We'll see. We'll
On
see.
that note,
On that
bye,
note,
y'all.
bye guys.
Bye.
I love you. Jesus loves you.
Bye.